In this video, we'll be examining the boxing skills of Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall prior to their meeting at the O2 Arena. From this examination, a prediction will be made as to who will win, how, and which round. For those people who have coins to play with, we'll look at strategies for maximum gain and minimum risk. I've watched all their fights. Some I've watched 2 or 3 times over. I'll show you the clips that will highlight the boxer's skills and failings. Shields first. She's 5'8" with a reach of 68 inches. 12 wins, 2 by stoppage, those at the beginning of her career. No defeats. Her pro boxing style is developed from an amateur style. Orthodox stance, she holds a mid-guard for defence of her body and the right side of her head. Speed of punches, and lots of them, is the hallmark of Claressa Shields. Let's see how she performed in her latest fight against Emma Curzin, because this will give us the best indication of her current skill levels and performance.
You can just see Shields, what she's doing. She's targeting the body, she's targeting that right hook around the side. You know, it's just different in levels at the moment.
Yeah, that right hook around the side is the shot she's looking for. She's trying to set it up at the minute. She's throwing the right hands down the middle, but you can see the right hook. She tried it in the first round a few times, didn't quite get there, but I think that is the shot that she's going to look to try and take Curzin out with.
What Shields doing, she's poking her left jab out. She's waiting for Curzin to use her lead hand to drop her hand down, and that just leaves herself open for that right hook. Very clever by Shields.
The Olympic rings tattooed on her right arm, Claressa Shields, and the blue in the hair is because of the problems in Flint with the contamination of water, Flint, Michigan, where she endured a really hard childhood. Claressa Shields, she's done brilliantly to fight her way through, and now is fighting for so much in America and around the world. She wants to be a figure like Serena Williams, who she looks up to.
You can just see the gulf in class between the two, the Olympic pedigree, the years and years of boxing. You know, whether Claressa wants to go on the front foot, whether she goes on the back foot, she's just a little bit too much. I say a little bit too much. She's a very much higher level than Curzin.
Having seen all her fights, I would say that the clip gave us a good overview of how Shields boxes at range. Fast hands, flicking jabs, straight rights, over-the-top shots, and punches to the body. This was classic Shields. We could also see that she doesn't dance around the ring. Shields goes forward or backward. Not being mobile is one of her limitations, particularly against Marshall. Clearly she is having scoring success with Curzin, but Curzin is 23 years old and is not in the same league. We're all looking forward to seeing how Shields copes with Marshall when boxing on the outside, but the mission-critical phase will be close-range boxing and infighting. Let's look at Shields getting up close to Curzin, forcing her onto the ropes in round 4. What we see is wild, ineffective punching. A huge amount of effort with very little impact. There is no punch selection, and Curzin exits unruffled by the beasting that she has just received. Shields is so gassed out that she can't continue the attack. Okay, let's look at round 5. This was planned to be the round to stop Curzin. Again, Shields is simply throwing punches, often repeatedly punching Curzin's gloves. During 6 seconds, she threw 16 punches, with none landing cleanly. A few seconds later, she goes again. She has some success, but her punches have no power. Curzin was still returning punches. These 2 rounds emptied her energy tank, and for the remaining rounds, she would never launch another sustained attack. The reason for this failure is threefold. 1. She doesn't have an uppercut. It's the single most effective punch for opening up the guard and stunning the opponent. But in her entire professional career, she has only thrown 2 uppercuts, 2018 against Tori Nelson and 2020 against Ivana Habazin. 2. She doesn't select her punches when targeting the head. Instead, she throws a whirlwind of blows, regardless of whether they hit the target. 3. She cannot throw an effective hook. Her punch geometry is wrong, so she ends up slapping her opponents. In this freeze frame, we can see Shields in the process of delivering Kozin a huge slap with the inside of her glove. Here again in her fight against Habazin. In her fight against Femke Hermins, we see the enormous wrist deflection as the slap impacts the head. The wrist acts as a shock absorber, allowing Hermans to remain standing. A hook shot requires the fist to be in line with the lower arm, and the blow must land with the fist, not the inside of the glove or wrist. Well, we can now understand why Shields cannot knock her opponents out. Is it possible that she's changed since her last fight? In her interview with the boxing writer in July 22, she said that she is learning how to select punches and sit on them. Let's have a listen. The link is in the description.
How has working with John David Jackson kind of changed you as a fighter?
John Jackson will tell you that since we got together, we already both agreed that I know what I'm doing. I know how to fight.
So her trainer agrees that she knows how to fight. My guess is that he knows that her muscle memory is set. The die is cast.
You see these rounds where she's almost out of there. I beat Emma Kozin down. When I fought against a lot of girls, I beat them down.
This is Emma Kozin at the end of round 10. She has Shields trapped in a corner.
She'll go back with her head held high. She'll have gone the distance with Claressa Shields, who I'm sure wanted the stoppage. She's going to have to settle for the points win. 12 professional victories, an emphatic defence of her 3 world title belts.
Clearly, Emma Kozin was not beaten down at all. She went 10 rounds with the middleweight champion of the world and then went to a nightclub after the fight.
We're just trying to get me to settle down, sit on the punches when I got them hurt. Recognizing when they're hurt, and just keeping the power over the rounds. You know what I'm saying? So girls will say that I got power throughout the whole fight, but it's we've been working on getting stronger and getting faster and just being more smart and picking our shots. And I believe that out of my 12 fights, I got 2 knockouts, 2 undisputed championships or whatever. But this will be the fight where people will see that I am going to knock out Savannah Marshall.
Okay, evidently her trainer is making an attempt to introduce change. But in truth, to achieve punching power requires a completely different style of boxing. It's not going to happen. And neither her fantasy knockout of Marshall. You can make your own mind up. For myself, I believe that in the O2, she will box as she has always done, but probably with a bit more caution. Let's turn to Savannah Marshall and see what she brings to the ring. 5'11.5". Her reach isn't listed, presumably because it's enormous. My estimate is 73 inches. It could be more. Either way, we know that she has a substantial height and reach advantage over Shields. She has 12 wins, 3 by KO and 7 by stoppage, all of which were brutal. No defeats. Over the past 5 years, Peter Fury has rebuilt her boxing style from the ground up. This style is unique in women's boxing. It gives her an advantage over her opponents because they can't find similar sparring partners. Having lived above the gym for the past 5 years, boxing has been her life. She carries no spare flesh. In my estimation, she's one of the most skilled boxers in the game, male or female. And she is widely acknowledged as being the most powerful puncher in the women's game. When these skills are combined with her height and reach, she's a formidable opponent. She has an orthodox stance and uses a minimal guard. her lead hand low in order to throw punches from outside the peripheral vision of the opponent. She either brings her guard up as needed or dodges the punches using footwork and pivoting of the body and head. Her stance is very narrow, allowing her head to be partially protected by her left shoulder while her left arm guards her body. Rankin can't see a good shot. This technique also maximises her reach advantage. By leading with her shoulder, she gains the distance of half her width plus the long arm. See the substantial range advantage against Rankin. This distance draws the opponent within Marshall's striking range. She has great tactical awareness for a punching opportunity, and we will see this in the last half of round 7 as Marshall ramps up the dismantling of Rankin. Be aware, it gets very violent. Rankin ends up with a perforated eardrum and a broken jaw, while Marshall remains fresh and still dancing around. Watch Marshall's eyes.
Not expecting. Wonderful body shot to end that combination. Just stepped away, out of range. Marshall was gone, and then another one of those hooks to the body. My goodness me, she is in some condition here, Hannah Rankin. She's soaked up a lot of body shots.
And this is mentally draining because Marshall's not letting up. Marshall's not letting up. As soon as Rankin attacks, she drifts out of distance, but then it comes right back onto her. Look at this.
Oh, my goodness me, that uppercut hurt. She's on the point of going here. There might be a decision for Phil Edwards to make here because Rankin is brave and tough and will not quit, but she is just getting broken up.
I wonder what the referee's waiting for. He should be stepping in here.
Oh, she's got nothing left here. Late in round 7, Savannah Marshall has been systematic and brutal. Rankin's heart is keeping her up, but that's all that's keeping her up. It is a battering. It is so one-sided, and even if the referee doesn't step in, Noel Callan in the Rankin corner surely has got a decision to make here. She takes a knee in the last few seconds. She's got absolutely nothing left.
She shouldn't have to do that. The referee should be stepping in there to saving her from this punishment.
And if he doesn't, the referee, there he has. Good.
She should never have had to take a knee.
That was brutal. It was ruthless.
In close-up, we get a good view of how Marshall uses her eyes to select targets during the attack. Also note her power jab, and keep in mind that Rankin went the full 10 rounds with Claressa Shields without problem. Marshall's next opponent was Maria Lindberg in 2021. Lindberg is built like a bull and had never been dropped before in her career. This is round 2. And again in round 3. Shields has always said about this fight that Lindberg was a last-minute replacement, so she had not gone through a training camp. But no amount of training can stop you from being knocked to the ground when you're hit in the head. It's the brain being sloshed around. Fit muscles don't help. But what happens if Marshall meets an opponent who is prepared to fight on the inside, just as Shields has always done? What about a knockout artist? Meet Lolita Mazea from Zambia. 30 years old, 16 wins, 5 by knockout, 3 by stoppage, and no defeats. As you can see, she's in prime physical condition, Her strategy is to take out Marshall very quickly by going straight to close range and the inside. This is the perfect opportunity to see how Marshall might cope if Claressa makes her move. Out of respect, because there's only 2 rounds in this fight, out of respect for Sky's copyright, I'll show the first half of round 1. Because we'll see Marshall has to take some good punches and gradually find a way into moving into punch selection mode.
Her treasured world title against fellow undefeated Lolita Mozea, rather an unknown quantity, Matt.
Yeah, but straight away Mozea is looking to take that centre of the ring. She's looking to back Marshall up behind that double jab. A very aggressive, fast start from Mozea.
Yep, she can punch. And a right hand. And Marshall just caught in a bit of a storm and has to fight her way out. Big pressure from the challenger from Zambia. Switching it out. And out very fast from the traps.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally jumped straight on it here. Let both hands go. Good uppercut there from Savannah Marshall.
Beautiful punch from Savannah Marshall, timed as Mozea came in. What a rip-roaring first minute we've had here as Mozea literally going for it.
Good left hook as well from Marshall.
Yep.
And again, a lovely uppercut. And again, 2 really good uppercuts there from Marshall. I think she's going to have to knock the fight out of Mozea.
Okay, well, we'll pick this up in the last half of round 2.
Jab.
Yeah, and that's a hard jab as well. That's not just a range finder or a point scorer. That's a ramrod jab. And these are hard shots from Marshall.
Won't be deterred, though, Mozea, as she just keeps trying to close the distance, but that's where Marshall wants her, at her own range. And spiteful punching from Savannah Marshall. And Mozea just losing her way. And a tired look. Desperate. It's almost like a last round effort, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, she put so much into the first round, and even this second round. And she's shipping a lot of punishment. These are really solid shots, bouncing off the chin.
Uppercut and body shot from Savannah Marshall, and a right hand. And Mozea coming apart here, and backed up in the corner. 10 seconds left in the second round, and Savannah Marshall on the verge here of defending the world title. The bell or the referee, it's the referee, and Savannah Marshall on the bell to end the second round, makes it another stoppage.
Okay. Nicely finished. Finally, for a direct comparison with Shields, we have the last fight of Savannah Marshall. It's Marshall v Hermans. This is particularly interesting because Hermans went the full 10 rounds with Shields. The first round was spent gauging each other, as will probably happen at the O2. In round 2, Marshall unveiled her latest acquisition, which is stance switching between orthodox and southpaw. We'll pick it up in round 3.
Rolled down, a couple of years younger. Hartlepool's Savannah Marshall.
She's just comfortable in wherever she throws, whether that's southpaw or orthodox. She never had an amateur used to switch at all, but now you can just see whichever foot she lands on, whichever way she's standing. Great shot over the top.
Lost the balance a bit. Femke Hermans. Big six. Femke Hermans. And it is over. A stunning statement from Savannah Marshall. There's the power. It's another KO. It's a dramatic defense.
Here's the punch. You can see Marshall is coiled like a spring. Her left arm is already hooked, and when the punch hits, the force is going to be directed down her forearm, in opposition to the force that's being directed into Femke Hermans' cheek. From the video evidence, It's undeniable that Savannah Marshall possesses a range of skills and punches way beyond that of Claressa Shields. However, Shields is an extremely experienced boxer with fast punches, so she may do well in the opening phases of the fight when boxing at range. But in fact, it doesn't matter who wins this phase. Even if Shields is successful, Marshall will cut the ring and close her down, forcing her into a fight on the ropes. This is unavoidable, because Shields is not quick on her feet, whereas Marshall can dance around the ring to cut her off. If Shields doesn't retreat to the ropes, it's the same outcome. Marshall will fight her in the middle. Therefore, at some point, and on numerous occasions, we're going to see them going toe-to-toe. And in that situation, Marshall will win each engagement. What makes it worse for Shields is that Marshall has shown that she can take heavy punches and simply ignore them. The only logical conclusion to this study is that Marshall wins by knockout or by stoppage. That leaves the question when. For female relationship reasons, my guess is that Marshall will be targeting round 6. By coincidence, Peter Fury has had Marshall sparring for 6 explosive rounds.
She's had good sparring, hard sparring, but like I said, she's only been doing like 6-rounders, not like 10s. So it's the training's been a lot more explosive, but shorter.
All this leads me to believe that the fight will not go into the 9th round. Marshall has already stated that she doesn't want the bout to end quickly, because she wants to show the world her boxing skills. Therefore, barring accidents, this indicates to me that the fight will go at least 4 rounds. That leaves rounds 5, 6, 7 and 8. Of those, 6 and 7 are the most likely. To drill down further is beyond reasonable prediction. Either way, due to the current wind, I'll go with round 6. Here's the summary. Okay, for those people who have some coins to play with, let's see how those coins can be placed for maximum benefit with minimum risk. This is the French system for placing your coins for Shields v Marshall. Here we have winning returns for a Shields win or a Marshall win. These aren't good options because we know that Shields, she can't win by knockout. So we would go for Shields by decision. And Shields by decision returns 2.35. So 100 coins placed on a Shields decision would return 235 plus the 100, that's 335. Whereas this would only return 290. So this would be the only option because Shields is not going to stop Marshall. So that would be the only viable option for placing coins on Shields. However, we don't believe that Shields is going to win anyway. We believe that Marshall is going to win, and she's going to win by knockout or stoppage. So this is an interesting option, and we may use this. Of course, if she doesn't get the job done, she could win by decision, but Marshall always gets the job done. So we're going to stick with our analysis and go for knockout or technical knockout. This isn't interesting. Shields stopping the fight in by which round? Here we have Marshall stopping the fight in which round. This could be interesting, but they're individual rounds. You get a very good return, but of course it's individual rounds. And we've already decided that the stoppage could come between rounds 5 and 8, most likely. Bad is if the fight is stopped for some technical reason, maybe the lights go out or something like this. We're not interested in that. This is what we're interested in. Group of winning rounds. And we're not interested in Shields. It's Marshall. Stoppage in rounds 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, 7 or 8. This is very interesting because we can place 100 coins on Marshall stopping Shields in rounds 5 or 6, and the return would be 1,200 plus the 100, that would be 1,300. But we can place also 100 coins on rounds 7 and 8. Obviously, one of these is going to lose, but it doesn't matter because the returns are so good, and we would be covering the most likely rounds. You could cover rounds 3 and 4 as well, and 9 and 10. But the most likely is 5 and 6, 7 and 8. So if you had 1,000, if this fight was stopped in rounds 5 or 6, you would get 1,300 minus the 100 that you've lost. So it would be 1,200. There would be a 1,200 return. But if something happened and by accident Marshall knocked out Shields in, say, rounds 1 or 2, you would lose this. So it's possible to hedge these coins that you've placed, 200. And you can do this by placing coins on Marshall by knockout, which is for the entire fight, as long as it is before the final bell. So with 200 coins at risk, and you're believing that the knockout or technical knockout is going to come, 100 coins placed here would get you 340 plus 100, so that's 440. So if there was an accidental knockout, you would have lost the 200, but you would have got 440. So you would end up with 240 return. If the fight was stopped in between 5 to 8, you would get 2 returns. You would get, for example, 1,200, 1,300, but you've lost 100 here, so that would be 1,300 plus 440. So that would be 1,640 returned. So it would be an accumulating option. If you wanted to do, you could also include some coins in for a single round. If you were wanting to risk your hand, for example, round 6 or round 7, 50 coins would get you 1,000 plus the 50, so 1,050. So if the fight was stopped in round 6, you would have the 1,050 plus the 1,200 plus the 440. So that would be multiple accumulations. But of course, if it was stopped in round 5, you would lose that 50. So clearly there's some simple arithmetic to be done in order to make sure that you're maximizing the likely returns and covering any mistakes based upon a stoppage. Because if the stoppage doesn't come, all the coins are lost. And the only way to hedge that is by hedging with a decision. Okay, so time for arithmetic. Here I've made a spreadsheet. And I've calculated it for coins in the hundreds or in the tens. It's a simple decimal place difference, but it shows it directly. It's also a fully hedged placement of the coins, to include Marshall winning by points. So all would be lost if Shields won by decision or by knockout. She's not getting a knockout, but if she managed to win, avoid Marshall. However, it's my belief that Marshall will win and she's going to knock her out. So I've included the Marshall by points to create a full hedge, so that if Marshall wins, then you're going to get some returns. Marshall by points, that's going to return 30. It returns 500, but you've invested 470. So therefore 30 would be returned. Pre-bell, this is rounds 1 to 4 or 9 to 10. And that would give a return of 58. Pre-bell and a stoppage within rounds 5 and 6, 2,408. Because that includes the wild card placement of 50 coins on round 6. Pre-bell within 7 or 8, 1,258. All these take into account the 400 deposited, 470 deposited. And so therefore it's a decimal place with 47 coins deposited. You would get 3, 5.8, 240.8 or 125.8. Now if you're very confident that Marshall is going to stop Shields, like she always does, then you could remove this hedge. If we drop that to 0, we can forget about this minus because this no longer exists, this hedge. The deposit is reduced to 370 coins, and this raises the profits by 100. So it's less deposited and greater return. But of course you lose the security of the hedge. So this would return 158 in rounds outside of these, 2,508 for 5 to 6, 1,358 for 7 to 8. Okay, that's it. You can see how it works. Obviously, the big risk is if Shields wins, but I just cannot see that happening. I cannot see her avoiding Marshall and avoiding being pummeled. But we're going to find out on Saturday night. So I've got my fingers crossed. Good luck to you guys, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and don't forget to like this work if you feel that it's been interesting. Okay, and give us a subscribe too. All right, bye guys.